Merry meet, witches. Welcome to the Witch Hats and Broomsticks podcast with the high priestess of all things witchy, your host, Ginger Hugh.
Hello, and welcome to Witch Hats and Broomsticks. My name's Ginger Quinlan, and I am delighted to take you in to today's topic, which is altars and sacred space and creating magic. We've talked about some of the bones of witchcraft in our previous episodes, so now we're going to dive in to the nitty-gritty stuff of getting started. How can you start your witchcraft practice? So the first thing I would say to you is learn about sacred space. So what is sacred space? For some witches, depending on what kind of witchcraft they perform, sacred space is outside, in the garden, in a forest, on a mountain. Just outside. For other witches, kitchen witches, their kitchen is their sacred space. Their entire house can be their sacred space. For very traditional witches, the Gardnerians and the Arthurian witches, they have their own altars. They set up an altar, and it's just for doing magic. It is just for doing healings, and it is just for that work. Wherever you choose to create a sacred space becomes your altar and your working magical section, whether it's your house, whether it's outside, whether it's at a special place you like to go to. When I was young and lived in Colorado, I used to love to go to the mountains to Mother Cabrini's shrine. Okay, so I wasn't Catholic, but the energy of that place, it was outside in the side of a mountain in Colorado. It was absolutely beautiful. Deer would come and just be grazing. There were benches where you could sit and watch the deer. There were forest trees and birds singing, and it was peaceful. There were not a lot of people there. But when people did come there, it was to pray and to light candles and to send out energy to the people that they love. What better sacred space than that? So I would go up to Mother Cabrini's shrine and light candles and send energy. But I did it my witchy way. Not Catholic, because I wasn't Catholic. But in a way that felt right, and it also honored the Catholic religion that was going on there, because I didn't have a bad feeling about it. I just knew it was a sacred, special place. So for those of you who are just getting started in the craft, one of the first things that I suggest when you start is to find a place that speaks to your soul, whether it's your stove in your kitchen, which is my personal happy sacred space, whether it's your garden, my other happy sacred space. Let me just say, I have an altar in every single room of my house, and my front yard is broken up into different kinds of energy and altars because I'm just like that. I like all my places to have a sacredness about it. So it feels right and it feels good. And if you came to my house, you wouldn't know that my fireplace was an altar. You wouldn't know that my craft room has an altar in it. It would just look like a cool setup for candles and a fish and a plant and things like that. But what you would know is that it felt good. That would be the first thing for you to do. Find a place that is just yours, that you can make your altar / sacred place. When I was younger and my kids were little, I couldn't really put all my really pretty things out that I liked, like all my crystals and feathers and sticks that were wands and things that I found, seashells, just trinkets that meant something to me. All of my ancestor statuary, all of that. I didn't want to leave it out when my kids were little because I knew they'd want to touch it and break it and, things kids do. So I had a box that was under my bed, and I would put all my really sacred stuff, the things that meant the most to me, in that box. And then when I wanted to do something magical, I could take my box outside, or I could go into my bedroom and set up on my bed. And I didn't have kids in it. I didn't have anybody messing with my stuff. And it felt good. It felt really good. So my altar was under my bed for a good part of my life while my kids were itty bitty. Now, altars everywhere. Even my husband, he's into doing that also. His room, where all his clothes and everything are, all his knives and hunting supplies and all that stuff, are in a special spot. And he makes all of his room that stores all his gear for doing life look very magical. And he calls it his sacred space because that's what it is. So find your sacred space. So what are you going to do in that sacred space once you find it? You're going to make it yours. You're going to cleanse it. You're going to connect to it. And you're going to tell it, you are my spot. This is where I'm going to do my magic, where I create energy, where I raise energy, where I send energy out to the world, to other people, to the people that I love, maybe to my animals, maybe to their animals. Whatever your secret space is, whatever your tradition is, that space becomes your altar to do your magical workings in. So I hope this is making sense to you, because it's a key element in witchcraft. Why do we have it? Because when you go into a place that you know is an energetic shrine and it's all yours because you set it up to be that way, unless of course you're out in nature, then nature is working with you in that shrine, that sacred spot, to create something together. But if you're inside and you're walking into this sacred space, you know you are getting ready to do some magical workings. So what does that do to your mind, body, and soul? It focuses you. It changes your energy. It raises your vibe, and it makes you emotionally connect to whatever it is you're about to do. And what is magic? That's right. It's raising energy. It's sending energy. It's manipulating energy. So the minute I walk into my kitchen and I know that I have cleaned my stove and it's radiant and sparkling, I have my candles set up on it. I have a gas stove, so I take the burner things off, the racks on top of the burners. And I put crystals all over my stove. I put candles on it. I put feathers. I have a plant that gets put there. And suddenly my stove, which represents the hearth of my house, becomes my sacred space to do healing work at. So when I'm doing healing work, I light a candle for whoever needs it. And I place a crystal grid around it, which is crystals that are placed in a really beautiful way with a huge intention behind them. And I think about that person or persons that I'm sending energy to. I might put their picture there with their permission. If I'm doing some kind of spell to help somebody legally, I use pictures. I use their request. I usually write it down. I use whatever it is they give to me to make sure that I am focusing the right energy on the right situation and the right people to help out that person who needs to win their court case. So it just depends on what it is that you're using your sacred space for and where it's at. But at all times, you will know this is the place I'm going to come to do magic. When you think of it that way, you're going to instantly go, well, how do I make it magical? And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we make your altar come to life? How do we make your sacred space connect to you? So I want you to take a moment and just close your eyes. Unless you're driving, don't do that. That would be bad. But if you're not driving and you can take a moment just to close your eyes and take a nice deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth and really kind of take the next breath in and bring it down into your body and pay attention to it. Let it fill your lungs. Let it move down into your solar plexus. Now blow it out. Let it go. And now as you sit and breathe normally, with your eyes closed, think about the place in your house or outside of your house that instantly calls to you and says, "Make me your sacred space." Listen to your guts, listen to your first feelings. And what did you get? Did you get a space in your house or outside that says, that could be my sacred space? If you didn't get a space that spoke to you, it's time to create one. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about how to create your sacred space. Because even if you have a sacred space that you know you're going to work with, there are 3 things that need to happen in that sacred space to really clear the energy for you to create magic. So the first thing I would suggest, and this is an all-the-time altar tool for witches, for any religion, sector, path of witchcraft, whether you're a traditional kitchen witch, eclectic, and you do it sometimes, not all the time, you want to have some sea salt. And you can get sea salt really cheap at the grocery store in the salt section, or you can go to the health food store and buy the expensive stuff. It doesn't matter. Sea salt is sea salt. Sea salt cleanses and purifies. So the first thing you want to do is get that sea salt, and whatever space you're going to use at your sacred space, you want to sprinkle sea salt around it. Now be careful. If you have plants, fish, or birds, do not get sea salt in or on those things. If you have dogs and cats, it doesn't usually bother them. They could care less. They don't like to walk in it. And you're not going to sprinkle it like you're sprinkling like an entire container. You're just going to sprinkle like you're sprinkling on food, very lightly. And when you do this, I want you to go counterclockwise around the space that's going to be your sacred altar space. Why are you going counterclockwise? Because you are cleaning out negative energy. You are releasing whatever is not working in that space. So sea salt clears out negative emotions, negative stuff that's been left there. If you've just moved into a new place, sea salt could be your new best friend. Sea salt that place, clean out that energy. Just make sure that you open a window while you do this so the energies have somewhere to go. So you're going to sprinkle it. I like to say I clear this space in love and light. May all good things enter here. You can say whatever you want to say. If you do it during the full moon, it's even more powerful because full moons are all cleansing oriented type moons. So you could say, with the energy of the moon, I cleanse this space for the highest good of my workings. Whatever you want to say, whatever feels good to you. If you're a Christian witch, You could say the Lord's Prayer. Super powerful. Whatever you want to do in that space, because it's your space and it's your path. So sea salt it. And then while you're out getting your sea salt, pick up a white candle. White candles clean, clear, and just lift up the energies in a space. So I would suggest a long, skinny taper candle, not a big fat white candle. You just want to use a tall one, dinner candle, household candle that you can burn. It'll burn for an hour or two. You don't need it to burn for days and days and days. Unless the space that you've picked to be your sacred space sucks, okay? Then you might want to get a bigger candle. But in witchcraft, the faster you can manipulate energy with a lot of focus and have your candle do the work for you, the better off you are. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later. So get a skinny candle, white candle. And if you should happen to be in a metaphysical store, or you happen to have some frankincense oil with you, or you find it in that metaphysical store, get some of that also. Frankincense oil clears negative energy and raises up the vibes. So you can put some frankincense oil in your left palm of your hand and run that white candle through that oil. You don't have to use a lot, 2 or 3 drops. Run it from the base of the candle all the way to the top. Just get your energy all over that candle. Put it in a nice candle holder, and I would suggest putting a plate under the candle holder because you don't want wax all over your sacred space, right? And then light that candle and tell it to go to work. You want your space cleansed. You are cleaning it for the highest good of all involved and for you to do your magical workings in there. And this is the beginning of your altar. How exciting is that? And how easy, and it doesn't cost a lot at all. So let me go into why we use tools. So everything I just told you about, sea salt, candles, oils, candle holders, all tools. And every single part of witchcraft has tools that you can use, whether it's crystals, feathers, pictures, statuary, mementos, whatever you want to use is a tool. Tools help us raise and manipulate energy, and that's why we use them. So when you set up an altar or a sacred space, if you're not using a table, but I would recommend that you do for your altar, you can set the whole room up to be your altar space. Because in witchcraft, we work with the 4 directions: earth, air, fire, and water. And the 5th is spirit. And some of us work with the underworld, 6 elements. Most of the time it's earth, air, fire, and water for your altar. And then you can address spirit as you see fit, or work with the underworld if it's like Halloween time. Whatever you choose to do, whatever your path says, oh, that feels good to me. All right, so when you're setting up your room or your table/altar, you want to keep in mind where the directions are in that room. Many traditions work with north, south, east, and west. North is earth, south is fire, east is air, and west is water. All right, north, south, east, and west. So you can use like the compass on your phone to find what your directions are. And when you know what the elements are, earth, air, fire, and water, north, south, east, and west, you can place items in that section of your room or your altar that coordinate to the elements. north, south, east, and west. So let me tell you about my room that I do all my magic in. I have an altar in it, but the whole room is set up to honor the elements. So when you walk in the door of my room, I have a fish tank for water. I have my business cards. I have books because the door of my room sits in a section that would be very watery, very earthy too, because I have a really small room. So it shares both of those elements. And I like to just amp up the elements in every single section of it. So in the far right-hand corner of my room, when I'm standing in my door, I have crystals, I have candles, I have pictures of my kids, all those beautiful things that make me feel emotional and connected to my children, because this is my west corner. All right. And then in my south section, I have windows, but I have candles. I have red things. I have a red tablecloth. Those are all fire energies, passions of mine. My favorite crafts are there. And as you continue walking through my room to the east section, as you walk to the east section, I have bells. I have shiny metal looking things because the east is all airy, metally kind of stuff. I have some feathers. I have, because that's east, it's air. And I have my certifications and pictures of people talking to each other. So that's how my room is set up. And if you just go around, it goes with all the elements. Now, when you're working with your table, your altar table, you can do the exact same thing. Find where your north, south, east, and west is on your table and set your altar up to match those elements. Now, if you're an extremely eclectic, kind of hippie boho, don't really give a crap about elements kind of person, you can just put stuff that makes you feel good on your table. Okay? If you want to be more traditional and call on the energies of the elements to help you in your magic, you can set it up that way. So let's talk about tools. Brand new witches have a hard time with this because if you read all the books, especially like Buckland's Book of Witchcraft, some of Scott Cunningham's books, Silver Ravenwolf, all of the major writers talk about tools all the time. And I know when I first started, I was like, man, my paycheck just barely buys food. Okay. $5.50 an hour and 2 kids. So I would think to myself, there is no way I can afford to buy these tools like a big cauldron and pretty candle holders. Even the candles is like, no, you can't eat it. I'm not buying it. Um, so I really struggled with the whole tools part. So let me say to you right here and now, don't get hung up on the tools. You can use tools that you get in thrift stores. Goodwill is a great place to find tools. I find the prettiest chalices in Goodwill. I have found candle holders galore in Goodwill. I have found deity statues at Goodwill. And I found altar cloths at Goodwill too. So Goodwill is an awesome resource for you. Any thrift store is actually really good. Okay. The only thing is when you bring it home, make sure you sea salt it, you cleanse it, you maybe put it out in the sunlight or the moonlight and tell it what it is you're going to use it for. Make sure you clean it because you want to have your energy on it, not somebody else's energy in your sacred space unless you invite it in there. So, okay, tools. In witchcraft, we use the same kind of cool tools all the time. All right. And it does not have to be fancy at all. Now, that's not saying you can't go crazy fancy if you want to, but for the most part, it's about the tool helping you manipulate energy, not so much how pretty it is. So let's talk about those tools. First off is the ATHAME or the wand. An ATHAME is a knife. They don't know where the word ATHAME came from. It's not really found anywhere. I tried to research where it came from forever ago, and they don't even know where the word originated. They think it's Celtic, but they're not sure. But an ATHAME is any kind of knife. It needs to have a handle, it needs to have a point. It's parallel to having a wand. It is an air element tool, an east element tool. You can also use it in the south if you want to. So ATHAMEs are used, just like wands, to direct energy and to send energy, to project it out. So we use ATHAMEs and wands to call in energy or to send it out. You can also use your ATHAME for cutting herbs, for carving your candles, for using it to carve bark off sticks to make wands. Any kind of sacred kind of work you're doing, your ATHAME becomes your cutting tool and your directional projector to send energy in and out. A wand does the exact same thing. So you can use a stick. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to have a crystal on it. It doesn't have to have any of that stuff on it. It's just a tool to help send energy in and out. All right? Bells. I love using bells when I do my magic, and here's why. I'm really connected to the fairy realm, and I'm a medium, so I talk to the dead. And when a bell is rung, especially if it has a higher pitch to it, it automatically opens up the chakras of the body, which is the energy centers from your throat to your forehead to the top of your head. And it makes your intuition come alive. It also calls in the fairies. It's also a signal to those who have died to come into your space and work with you. Now, if you don't want to work with fairies and you don't want to work with dead people, you can say, no, I'm just reading this to open my chakras and to really honor the element of the east and air. It's all about east and air, calling in the gods, goddesses, spirits, fairies, those on the other side. That's what bells are for. Again, you don't have to have a fancy bell. I have a little teeny tiny bell that I got at Goodwill that works just fine, and it's powerful. And the minute I ring that thing, my head opens up and my room feels like it's full of magical energies. So that's what bells do. Let's talk about broomsticks. All right, so broomsticks, they have an interesting story behind them. It was believed in the 15, 16, 1700s that women in particular liked to mount brooms and ride them. And if they did that, they were witches. That fable went even further in the 1800s during the Inquisition times and the burning times because of a little thing called hallucinogenic drugs. So in the early days, women in particular, sometimes men, would use broomsticks as their hallucinogenic tool because they would slather on the cream of hallucinogenics and then insert it in to their buttocks or their vaginal area. I know, ew. And then they would think they were flying. So broomsticks are associated with witches riding on broomsticks. And that's how that myth was created. But I named the show Witch Hats and Broomsticks because, first of all, I make witch hats and I love witch hats, and I make broomsticks. So I just felt like, these are the two things I really love to make. And this show is something I'm loving doing. And it just felt right. So what do we use broomsticks for besides getting high and riding around in the 1800s? Broomsticks are used to clear energy. So remember how I told you to sea salt your sacred space? Well, after you leave the room, after sea salting and lighting your candle and opening a window, you're going to come back to it. And sea salt makes you clean. It will make you want to make that room sparkle and shine. And it will inspire you to clean everything. Everything. I love sea salt. So in witchcraft, we use brooms. And you can use any kind of broom. A lot of people believe it's better to have a wood-handled broom and to be able to make it your sacred broom, not just any broom that you clean the house with, but a broom that cleans the energy around your altar. So it becomes your sacred tool of cleansing. So what you do is when you walk into your sacred space, after you've sea salted and you've let everything sit for a little while, you want to take that broom, and you don't actually have to touch the floor at all. If you have a broom that you like, that you want to make it your sacred tool, you can walk around your space and sweep the air. And you're going to do that clockwise. All right, because now you're shifting the energy to positive. So clockwise is always positive. Counterclockwise is always negative. So you're clearing out negativity big time if you're going counterclockwise, which is also called widdershins. Widdershins means counterclockwise. Clockwise means you're bringing in positivity. So you're going to start in the east or the north, depending on your tradition. Or again, if you're just an eclectic witch who just wants to get in there and get it done, start where you want to, whatever calls to you. But you're going to sweep the air with your broom. And you can say, I cleanse this space. And I call on the gods and the goddesses to help me cleanse this space. Whatever you want to say. You can call in the elements, north, south, east, and west. I call on you to cleanse my space, align you with your energy, and make this my temple to practice my witchcraft. Whatever you want to say. I just made that up. So it's up to you. Whatever you want to say. When you're done with your broom, make sure you stand it up somewhere. Don't lay it down, because it's believed the energy all seeps out the handle and the bottom. You want it to stand up and point up to spirit, to sky, to God, goddess, all that is. And that honors your broom and honors your circle that you just cleansed, because guess what? You just got your space ready to cast a circle in. How exciting is that? And you're almost there. So let's talk about candles. I love, love, love working with candles. They are my favorite thing in the whole world to work with. And why are they my favorite thing? Because they do a lot of work. All right. Remember how I told you to cleanse your candle and anoint it with frankincense oil? That is a magical working, because you are running that candle through the palm of your hand, loading it up with your energy, saying, this is my space, I'm cleaning this space, and that's what this candle is going to do for me. You can use candles for healing, casting protection, doing bindings to protect your friends and family, for legal work, for whatever you want to use to lift the energy in a room, to do whatever it is you need to focus on and focus on heavily. Candles will do the work for you. We'll be doing an entire show on candles that'll be coming up in the next couple weeks. So watch for that. Cauldrons. What is a cauldron? Cauldron is a pot. It is a cast iron cauldron in most traditions, but those are expensive. So if you just have a nice glass bowl you want to use, that's fine. It resonates to the element of water. Water and fire. All right, cauldrons are used to bring in all the energies of water and fire. So some people use their cauldrons just for water to bless their circle. Remember how I told you to do sea salt? Well, you can do the same thing with sea salt water. And you can use your cauldron to put the sea salt water in and walk around your circle and sprinkle water around and bless your space. So it's used for that. It's also considered a tool of rebirth and going into the womb. It represents giving birth and also going into the underworld, the darkness, because cauldrons are dark. You have to go down into it to use it. But if you don't have a cauldron, you can use a bowl that you like. You can use a glass bowl if all you're doing is water. Now, if you're going to burn something, I would suggest you get a cauldron, even if it's a little mini cauldron. There are some good places to get those. You can get them on my website at themysticalwareshop.com. You can find them in thrift stores sometimes. Antique stores have the coolest cauldrons I've ever seen. I had a lady give me 2 antique burners, but they're cauldrons, and they're absolutely gorgeous. I love them. So in a cauldron, you're going to put kitty litter or sand. You'll use charcoal briquettes. That's another tool we use to burn resin incense. Resin is chunky resin like frankincense, copal, dragon's blood. All of those you burn in a cauldron. You can burn sage in there. You can burn Palo Santo. Any of those things you can use in your cauldron. So it's basically the element of fire coming into your altar table. Okay, so do you see how all the elements are coming in? We have the broom, which is earth and air. We have candles, which is fire and air. We have the cauldron, which is water and fire. We have the ATHAME or wand, which is earth and air. And then we move on to chalices. So what's a chalice? Chalice is a cup. All right. If you don't have a fancy cup, that's okay. So a chalice represents the tree of life. It represents emotions. It coordinates to the west. It's all about water. And a chalice is used for holding sacred liquids, for toasting. It's an offering to the gods and the goddesses, the spirits. It's to honor whoever might be doing magic with you if you're working in a group, or maybe it's just you and your partner together. You can honor each other with that chalice. Share your wine with your partner. Share, if it's Halloween, apple cider, whatever you want to do with that. The chalice represents that. It is emotions. It is the West. It is water. It is beautiful. All right. Crystals. Crystals are so much fun. This is an earth element, but depending on what kind of crystals you use, it can be all the elements. Crystals are used to really bring that earthy feel to your altar. Plus, whatever kind you choose, they all hold different healing properties, different properties of energy that they can bring to whatever magical workings you're doing. And I think they just raise the energy. And they look beautiful. And I have a gazillion of them. So crystals are very, very appropriate. You can use herbs, you can use oils. Herbs and oils, again, help raise the energy, help you do healing work, help you focus whatever your magical working is. And you can research what kind of herbs, oils, crystals all work in the kind of ritual or spell casting you're going to choose to do. So incense. I love using incense when I do ritual, when I do magic, when I meditate, when I clean my house, when I'm doing anything, I'm burning incense. I am an incenseaholic. I am. Because it lifts my energy and it cleanses and it makes me feel good and it makes me focus on what I'm doing. Like I'm burning some frankincense incense right now, and it makes me feel like I'm levitating off my chair. It makes me happy and it smells so, so good. You can use whatever kind of incense you want to use. Make sure it coordinates to whatever kind of magical working you're doing. Okay? Statues. My house is full of statues. Love statues. I love artwork. I love pictures of people, of witches, of gods, goddesses, trees. I have a whole wall devoted to trees. I love angels. All of those things that make me smile when I come into my sacred space is what you can use on your altar, on your walls, in your house, in your garden, whatever it is that makes you smile and connects you to the energies that you're going to be working with and that you want to honor in your everyday life. Do you see where witchcraft has this very eclectic kind of feel to it? It's really all about empowering you to have the things on your altar in your sacred space that makes you feel connected to all that is, to the earth, to the gods, to the goddesses, to yourself, to spirit, to God, higher power, whatever you follow. That's what your altar is all about. Whatever that space was that talked to your soul earlier in this podcast, go to that spot and just make friends with it. And then start getting it ready to be your special sacred space. Because upcoming episodes, we are talking about spellcasting, we are talking about rituals, talking about working with the moon, and we have Imbolc coming up. So we'll be doing some ritual work right here on Witch Hats and Broomsticks. I will be posting events on Facebook soon in the next couple days. I also have classes coming up on the Mystical Wares shop website under the School of Witchery. I don't have them ready for you to sign up yet. My computer has not been good the last week and a half, fighting with me to get these classes up, but they're getting there. I'm almost done with it. So I will have classes for you to take. These are all little mini courses. They're not long, but they're loaded with information. It's not expensive. It's to help you on your journey. That is my goal, to help you on your journey. I also have a moon webinar coming up, a full moon webinar and an Imbolc webinar. And it will teach you how to do full moon ritual, how to do an Imbolc ritual. All right. So stay tuned for that. I will be posting all these events up on Facebook at the Mystical Wear Shop. That's Mystical Wears Mama. You can find me there. You can also find me on Instagram at Mystical Wears Mama too. So thank you for joining me today. I'm so glad you were here. I hope this gives you some insights into how to get your altar and your sacred space all lined up and ready to start working with you. Hope you enjoyed this show, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Witch Hats and Broomsticks. Have a magical week.
Merry Part Witches. For more demonstrations, classes, and magical goodies, visit themysticalwareshop.com.